Hey everyone, I'm so glad to be back with you all this week. We're going to continue our series on emotions. Last week we talked about the emotion of disgust. Week before we talked about anger. And this week we're going to talk about fear. So we're going to jump right into our story, which is from Mark chapter 16, verses 1 through 8. It's one of the tellings of the resurrection of Jesus. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salmon bought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe, sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. I love this story. This story is full of so much action. These women go to the tomb to care for what they think is going to be Jesus' body. But when they get there, they're surprised. They're shocked to find that Jesus is not there. And they're instructed to go tell people, but fear overcame them and they told no one. Have you ever been scared? Have you ever been so afraid that you just kind of freeze? A lot of times we refer to this as fight or flight. Some people kind of react and they want to fight back, but some people, they freeze, and some people, they run away. They're so scared. Being afraid is normal. Being fearful of things is actually what keeps us safe a lot of times. I'm sure you all know all about fear right now. We're living in a time that can be a little bit worrisome. We fear what we don't know. When we go outside, we have to be careful. I'm sure like many of us grown-ups, a lot of you all are also wearing masks. It's because the fear of a sickness getting to us is real. But because of that fear, we know to wash our hands, to cover our face, to stay within a certain distance of people. Fear can sometimes keep us safe. But fear can also keep us from talking. So it's okay to talk to a grown-up like your mom, your dad, your grandparent, older brothers and sisters, cousins, about your fears. What are you fearful of right now? I work at a hospital now, and sometimes I'm fearful of what's around me. I'm fearful of who's touched what, some of the spaces I go in. But one of the best things I've done is talked about that fear. And it amazes me because a lot of people say, "Oh, yeah, that's worried me too." And so I know that my fear is not abnormal. So I encourage you to talk with your parents, with friends, with people you trust about what are you fearful of? What things worry you? And so as we think about fear, I like to also think about light. Now, I know that may sound weird, light, but I think of sometimes fear being when we're in the dark. Have you ever been in the dark? It's kind of scary. So you might have turned on a light, a flashlight, a room light. You might have had a night light. Why do you think that is? It's because in the midst of darkness, when light shines, we feel safe. And that's how I view God. It's in the midst of being scared and being afraid and having so many fears, that God is that light that shines brightly and reminds me, I'm going to be okay, and that God is caring for me. So this week, I want to do something fun and show you an activity that you can do at home. You'll just need some scissors or a grown-up to help you with scissors. You'll need some tape. And you'll need a piece of paper, just a normal 8.5 by 11. And you'll want probably a pencil. So the very first thing you're going to do is make this piece of paper turn into a square. I did that by just making it 8.5 by 8.5. And so it looks something like this. Then you'll fold it in half. And when you cut your piece of paper into a square, make sure you keep the extra scraps. I'll show you why in a moment. And then you're going to measure about 1/2 inch, give or take, on the top. And then 16 lines going across. You can do it. I put a line in half and put each halves in half until I had 16. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take scissors and you're going to cut on these lines all the way to that 1/2 inch mark that you cut. And you don't have to get it exact, but try to get it close to what you cut. Now I'm using copy paper, like the kind you might find in the printer. I would suggest using maybe construction paper. It's a lot more fun if you have paper that's a different color, but if you use white, you can always color it, decorate it, anything like that. All right, so I've cut it. It's kind of hanging like fringes. Got about 1/2 inch on the top. And you're gonna open it, and this is where it gets fun. You're gonna take your top and your other top, and you're gonna turn it in. So it's like that. And you're going to take a piece of tape, and you're just going to tape the top of it together and tape the bottom of it together. Tape the top and the bottom. All right, once you've done that, you've made your lantern. It looks really fun. And then what you're able to do is you can take your scrap that you cut earlier, you just cut it into like smaller pieces, and you can just tape that right across like that, or glue it, and it becomes a lantern like this. And then what you're able to do is you can decorate it, or you can write things that you're fearful of. You can write them on the top and the bottom. You can decorate it. Some people even put a bottom on it and then stick a little plastic candle inside it. But it's your own personal lantern that reminds you that in the darkness, there's light. So I hope you remember to talk about your fears, that it's okay to name them out loud, to yourself, to your friends, to family, and of course to God. And with that fear, I hope you always remember that there is light and God is always with you. I hope you all have a great week. And I'll see you next week when we talk about a kind of difficult emotion, but one that I think we really need to talk about more now than ever, and that's sadness. So I'll see you next week. Bye.